Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around those damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, and review us, and everything else you could do. Good. I would say in a good way, but leave bad feedback if you want. If feedback is feedback, man. I mean, unless you're a prick about it, you know. Anyways, I'm getting out of hand. Whatever I tell you every week, go over there, interact with us on our the platforms that we're on for podcasts. You get the whole deal. Anyways, and of course, follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding our show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. I, of course, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, the voices in my head. We had a last-minute change. I feel like this has been like a regular thing recently, and I promise we are not making it a regular thing. Our schedules have just been conflicting between Mike and I. So it is just me this week. So it'll probably be a short episode. Unfortunately, I hate to cut it that way. And the fact that this is episode 150, we couldn't push the episode back, so... You know, on a side note, before we get into that, 150 episodes, holy shit. 150 straight weeks we've been coming, actually more than that. Technically, it'd be 152 straight weeks that we've been coming into your speakers, wherever your speakers, headphones, whatever. There's some kind of phrase I can put in there with that. But it's been, I think it's 152 because we had the MCC episode was a two-part, and we split that between 2 weeks. And we did a kind of breaking news, like quick first impressions when the Series X was announced at the Game Awards in 2019. So we had a couple extra shows in there kind of thing. So technically it's 152 weeks straight, but I digress. Without missing an episode, you guys have been here. And new people coming alike, if this is your first episode, I am sorry. This is going to be atypical of how our show normally is. Whenever it's me and a guest, at least 9 times out of 10, it is my co-host, Mike Peapack. But yeah, it's just me this week, Travis White, aka Travelus on most internet platforms. So getting into it, I mean, we're just going to get the brass tacks on this one. Like I said, it'll probably be... I'm getting ahead of myself. I was saying 150 episodes. First of all, thank you very much. Everyone who's listened, tuned in, gotten to check out our show, even if it is just, oh, this fucking sucks, and turns it off right away, thank you for at least giving us a shot. You see, you know, a podcast about Xbox stuff, a podcast about PC gaming, stuff like that. And the show's evolved multiple times. I think I've said this multiple times in multiple different milestone shows, whether it was the 50th, the 100th, you know, whatnot. The show has evolved over that 150 episodes where it's never been one thing necessarily. And I think that's what I like about it the most, is that the show's kind of grown and evolved with us, as whether it's from a media standpoint, whether it's from a content creation standpoint, whatever, it's kind of evolved to always what we needed it to be at the time. And I think that's what I appreciate most about kind of doing the show for 50 straight weeks, or 152 straight weeks technically, but for 150 straight episodes, that, you know, getting to do this with, whether it's Mike, Adam, my best friends out there. So, you know, getting to do this show every week, one, means a lot to me in that regard, but also two, that we've gotten to kind of experience this evolution alongside you and kind of mold this and tweak this show as we've needed it to, for not only us, but you guys as well. We've always, even now, I mean, shocker, we don't make a ton of money off this show. Unless you're a 1% of, you know, podcast in terms of listenership and whatnot, you're not you're not raking in the dough. This is very much still a passion project for us. And granted, we've seen growing, viewership and listenership over the months and years and whatnot. And it's, really episode after episode for the most part, we're seeing growth, and that's incredible to me nonetheless. But overall, it's always, the show's evolved and shaped to what not only we need it, you need it, everyone involved, what I guess the games medium is wanting at that time. And I think that's what I appreciate about the most. And it's going to be like that. I mean, we've had it from deep dives into specific games. We've had it reviews. We've had it a news show. We've had it, Q&A, you name it. This show's kind of been whatever it needed to be for us, whatever we needed it to be, whatever you the listener needed it to be, and everything in between. And I think that's been a healthy relationship between us. And I think this show has the bandwidth to do that. And it's provided, trust me, and I think the listeners who are a little bit older, I don't want to say older, my late 20s, but those who aren't necessarily, teenagers or anything, but as you get older in life and you move on in life and you go to different stages, you become a full-grown adult with jobs. Some of you are married. Some of you have kids, stuff like that. The moments you get to spend with those friends you've had forever mean the world. And every week I know I at least, at bare minimum, whether it's Mike, whether it's Adam, whether it's Mike and Adam, I get to carve out at least usually, an hour or so every week that no matter what's going on, whether we can play games at night or whatever that week multiple times throughout the week or not at all, I know once a week I'm sitting down with two of my best friends to talk about video games like we've done for 29 now we've been friends since we were very young, elementary school, 20 plus years, 25 years, something like that, so it's I think the listeners who were in the same age bracket, that 18 to 35 age demographic, you understand those moments get few and far between, and to have something that has always been a tentpole for us in general to kind of keep us all together really means a lot. So really, I think that's a good way to kind of cap off the talk of 150 and what that means and whatnot. But all it is at the end of the day is it's just one step closer to the inevitable world domination that we're going to do. You know what I'm saying? Anyhow, though, yes, cheers to 150 episodes. Here's to the next 150. Here's to the next week's show, too. When hopefully Mike and I are just back together and we don't have to worry about anything. It's not me shouting into the void. Anyways, let's get on with the show. I guess I could talk about what I've been playing. Up until, obviously, what we're going to talk about in the main topic for the show and what I kind of just want to talk about, and I think we need to talk about, I was continuing my really just Bethesda playthrough of things that... you guys know me, I'm a Bethesda stan, so I love, whether that's published games, developed games, whatever. I've always loved the approach and the how do I want to call it? That taste that you get from a Bethesda game, that whether it's an actual, BGS game, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, yada, yada, or a published game from them, from one of their, partner studios or one of their subsidiaries, whether it's Tango, whether it's id, whether it's Arcane, the list goes on, Machine Games, you get that feeling from specific games of theirs that they have this very unique texture to them, whether it's from their narrative approach, whether it's from their world building. They very much still all fit in kind of a, they have a certain taste, and that's always resonated with me. So on our inevitable march towards Starfield, as we were getting to originally in the fall, but we'll get to that in a little bit, I said, all mainline BGS games I wanted to at least bare minimum do a playthrough heading back into, because that gave me an excuse to replay Morrowind, replay Fallout 3, which I haven't in fucking forever. Like, things like that, like, outside of the normal routine of Oblivion, Fallout 4, and Skyrim, just because those are the most accessible to get, or they're the most accessible to play on modern hardware, whether it's my gaming rig or my console or whatever. So I've been kind of doing that, but I also now have expanded it to just really any Bethesda game. So I was going back through and I was like, I never finished Dishonored 2 and I fucking adore Dishonored 1. I need to go back and play that. So I just restarted Dishonored 2 and went through replayed or finally did a full playthrough of it, and fucking shocker, Arcane's incredible with everything they do. So had a blast playing that, and I still stand by that Arcane may be the best in the business right now at level design, and I truly don't believe they get enough credit in that regard, both at the Austin studio and the France studio in Lyon. That I don't think they get enough props at the level of detail and intricacies and depth that they put into their design aspect. There's so much thought that goes into their level design, specifically in the Dishonored franchise. And also, too, you're seeing that as well with, most recently, Deathloop. So it really, 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 really makes me feel great about their future with Microsoft. And so many people have made the comparison of like, hey, Arcane may quietly become Microsoft's Insomniac like Sony has. And I absolutely stand by that statement. I think that's an excellent, really, because for so long, Insomniac was always, and I'd like to say, granted, you remove, for years, they were always the Ratchet & Clank studio, and they did absolutely fucking fantastic with that. But that's what they were known for. They were Ratchet & Clank, and that was their wheelhouse, and they perfected really that character third-person platformer / shooter genre-ish that we saw mostly, obviously, on the PlayStation 2 and bleed over into the PS3 generation. But they finally really came into their own, I think, after they kind of not only, one, dipped their toe into something else besides that with Sunset Overdrive, the Xbox One exclusive back in 2014, and really kind of a cult classic now, I like to think, that was very, I think now as time has gone on, people start to really see kind of the greatness that game was. I don't want to say it was incredible, amazing, but you could see so much of not only the DNA of what went into Spider-Man and what went into, obviously, later Ratchet & Clank releases, that you really saw them kind of start to spread their wings a little bit and see, okay, we could do more than just Ratchet & Clank. So I would love to see now them kind of have that, not, hey, we got to, not that Bethesda ever, I'm sure was ZeniMax, really being like, hey, you got to X, Y, and Z needs to be done. You have to, because they were a private company up until Microsoft bought them. So they didn't have to necessarily answer to shareholders or anything like that. But hey, we got to, make sure we're hitting budget and this and that. And not that Microsoft isn't going to have those lines in there, but they're going to be a little more blurred with the bankroll that Microsoft obviously has. So to me, that only is going to improve their output and what they're able to do. And I'm excited for Redfall, and obviously we're going to talk about that too. But anyways, yes, finished a Dishonored 2 playthrough. Absolutely love that. And actually went back and did another playthrough of Doom Eternal. That was actually my first replay of Doom Eternal, true full replay, since launch, which is crazy to think. And this time I played it on PC. I was always torn on, I got it on console at release, even though I knew once I bought it, I was like, I should have got this on PC. Like, just because any first-person shooter or any shooter in general, for the past probably 5 years, I've defaulted to PC, just because PC's always felt more natural to me, but now you're at that point where it's just like, not only, more so at the point like, yeah, more people may be getting this on console, but I want to do me, like, if I'm doing this kind of thing. So, but I kind of regretted it not getting it on PC at launch, but then I picked it up on Steam sale anyways. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to play this again. But I think I really appreciated it more this time around. I still think you probably could have nixed maybe like 15% of that game out, like trim the fat of it a little bit. I think that was what was so incredible about Doom 2016 was the pacing was so well. But at the same time too, I think I approached my playthrough of Doom Eternal this time a little bit different, and I think I really leaned into id's perspective on playing this game and how you approach this game and what you do with this game. And not that I didn't take that the first time around. I think playing it on PC is just, from a control standpoint, it meshes with that so much better. It meshes with it so well. The fluidity of that game, I think, just meshes with mouse and keyboard so well. So going through and replaying this and getting to kind of tweak, take a different perspective this time around, I think really let me kind of appreciate that game more. I still personally think Doom 2016 is, I think that's my go-to instead of Doom Eternal, but at the same time, I think Doom Eternal definitely is the better game. But I still think 2016, from a pacing standpoint, is probably my favorite. And granted, that may just be, I don't want to say nostalgic goggles, but it may just be, right time, right place with that game, compared to Doom Eternal, even though I still thought that game was incredible at launch. But we're talking about, it's like kill your babies kind of thing. Like, both of these things are incredible, and I gotta choose one. I can only, you know what I mean? So, anyways, though, play through Doom Eternal. It's fucking fantastic. Yet again. But, anywho, let's get into our big topics for this week. And really, like I said, it's probably going to be a relatively shorter one, but this one we had to talk about. And naturally, obviously, like I said, it's like rain or shine. This show's happening every Friday, whether it's just me talking, these random pockets of things that have come on. Mike and I, it was like 100 straight episodes we hadn't missed together. And like, I think I did my first by myself like last summer or something like that. Because I always think it's important to make sure we check in with you guys every week, whether it's for half an hour, whether it's for 3 hours, or whether, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's important for us to touch base, whether it's a quick conversation or a longer one. But for some reason, these past couple weeks have been like more like turbulent of getting us on the schedule, not in a bad way. We just like, Mike has a new job. I'm kind of wrapping up the school year with my job and, everything, the craziness that goes along with how crazy my job can be during the school year. So it's like getting that all kind of lined up. The past couple weeks has just been hit or miss with getting us on there. But I truly think after this week, we should be good just moving forward. There should be no more bumps. We should all be on the same page. But, though Mike it was really a last minute thing. Poppy was like, I fucking got swindled into this. I gotta, you know what I mean? No big deal. But anywho, though, I did want to make sure we touch base on this one, though, because this is a big one, and this is very near to, my excitement levels for this year. And yet again, and instantly Mike hits me up this morning, like when we both kind of see it at the same time, and I send over to our group chat. I'm like, this is what happened, and he said, God damn it. Like, he's like, and I'm not saying this in a way like, told you so, but like, I just fucking hate being right in these situations. Like, I really do. And that is that we got official confirmation this morning from Bethesda Game Studios and Bethesda in general, that both Starfield and Redfall have been delayed to 2023. This write-up comes from Joe Screbbles over at IGN, as always. Link in the description. Go over there, give Joe a click. Check out all the work over at IGN. All the writers over there are incredible. But especially Joe across the pond does great work over with IGN's UK team. So go over there, make sure you give him a click on the article. Bethesda has announced that Starfield and Redfall have been delayed to, quote, the first half of 2023. Announced by Bethesda on Twitter, no specific reasons were given for the delays other than to say that the teams, quote, want to ensure that you receive the best, most polished versions of them. The statement also promises that the first gameplay deep dives for both games will be released, quote, soon, and you can imagine that would come during the Xbox and Bethesda Summer Showcase on June 12th. The quote, I'll just read it on here, says, we've made the decision to delay the launches of Redfall and Starfield to the first half of 2023. The teams at Arcane Austin, Redfall, and Bethesda Game Studios, Starfield obviously, have incredible ambitions for their games, and we want to ensure that you receive the best, most polished versions of them. We want to thank everyone for their excitement for Redfall and Starfield. That energy is a huge part of what inspires us all of us every day, and drives our own excitement for what we are creating. We can't wait to share our first deep dive into gameplay for both Redfall and Starfield soon. Thank you for the support. A follow-up from Starfield's Bethesda Game Studio simply says, quote, "We can't wait for you to play Starfield, but we need some more time. We're so thankful for all the support and encouragement and are excited to show you the game soon." Arcane followed up the tweet with a message from Redfield's director, Harvey Smith. Quote, "Here at Arcane Austin, we've decided to delay the launch of Redfall," Smith explained. "The team needs more time to bring the game to life. Thank you so much for your continued support. Redfall is our most ambitious game yet, and we can't wait to show it off soon." Starfield previously had a release date of November 11th, an important date for Bethesda, given Skyrim was released on the same date in 2011. The Xbox console exclusive has been showing off a number of details recently, from the game's companions to its factions to its music, but we've never seen official gameplay. We've seen in-game engine footage from the Creation 2 engine, but not direct feed gameplay, you know what I mean. Redfall has been even quieter. Announced as Xbox show closer during E3 last year, the new game from Arcane Austin was announced as an open-world co-op FPS due for release this summer. However, since that reveal, we've seen nothing of the game aside for some leaked images. The lack of gameplay for both games had been seen by some as simply holding back for a major drop during the summer, but it seems the reality is that both games simply aren't ready for release just yet. They join the long list of games delayed in 2022. So, I'm not going to lie. From a fan's perspective, this one stings. Like I said, even at the top of the show, I'm a Bethesda stan. I adore, outside of the N64 and Halo, like in terms of like moments within my gaming lineage, playing Ocarina of Time on N64 for the first time and being absolutely blown away by that as a fucking 5-year-old kid, to then playing Halo 1 on the original Xbox, to then playing really the next one that kind of, I want to say, really lit my RPG love. Besides, and I would even say, as a kid, I would classify Ocarina of Time as an RPG, but now I probably wouldn't, but you get what I'm saying. My love for, I guess, high fantasy and whatnot, got me interested in playing the Elder Scrolls with Morrowind, but really, and granted, I played Morrowind on the original Xbox. I had a PC version of it back in the day when I was a kid, but really the one that blew me away was Oblivion. And I remember that coming out, and Mike and I have talked about it before. His mom drives us to GameStop because his brother got a 360 the summer that first summer it came out. He was home from college, and we were in the summer going into 8th grade, something like that, right when Oblivion came out. But his brother was home for the summer, so we had a 360 there. Made his mom drive us to GameStop, go get the game, bring it back, put it in, and the game doesn't work. And so we beg her, shout out to Mrs. Peapack, she drove us right back, swapped the game out, brought it back, and I'll never forget the first time, not only coming out of the sewers, the Imperial sewers with that game, and stepping out and just seeing the world and just being like, this is the future of gaming, but like even looking up at the sky in the skybox at Kvatch, like when you first get there, and seeing the detail that was put up on that, it just like those couple moments really are going to stay with me forever as I'm, as my love for gaming goes on, as now I try to dip a toe into the development world of games and programming, and, those moments kind of push you a little bit. And Bethesda really, outside of the 90s era of Nintendo, and really, I guess, obviously I'm a fan of all platforms, but, and besides, maybe Blizzard and, some of their earlier titles and like Diablo and D2 and Warcraft 3 and stuff like that, and WoW, obviously, but as a kid, though, Bethesda really defined my love for games. So anytime there is a mainline Bethesda Game Studios title that does come out, it's a big deal for me. And I'm saying that from a fan's perspective. Remove, and I'm saying that this is only a fan's perspective that I'm talking about. And don't even get me started on, from a media perspective. I think they're fascinating to, both, there's positives and negatives with that, but incredibly fascinating from how they, approach things. But also too, as somebody now who wants to try to make games to a degree and get into maybe the games industry on the dev side. The passion that those games have instilled in me for design and development really kind of like these games mean a lot to me. So from the fan perspective alone, like, it sucks seeing that. But this is absolutely the right thing to do. This 100%. If they don't believe this game is ready, we've seen from a similar genre of game what can happen when a hugely anticipated title from a, I would still say, pretty beloved developer, when it comes out and it's a dud. Cyberpunk. We've seen what happens. And like we've said before, Mike and I have kind of both said this pretty much anytime there is a major delay for any game, yada yada. You have one chance, one opportunity to make a first impression. After that, you never will be able to make another first impression. Period. You can't. The toothpaste is out of the fucking tube of toothpaste. Like, it ain't getting back in there. Genie's out the bottle. So you have one chance to make a first impression. I'm not even saying like first gameplay shown. I'm not talking, yeah, that stuff too. But from launch on, you look at all pretty much like any, games as a service or live service title, like, yeah, sure, you love hearing these, hey, a year later, this game's really turned it around, it's gone to a really good place, yada, yada. But the message is always going to be, man, that rocky start, or man, that was tough, or God, that game was bad at launch, yada, yada. Very much so that the idea, and understand, and there's degrees to this, like, Jason Schreier brought up a good point. I'm going to pull up a quote from him in a second about this, but he also brought up a good point in not only both of his books that he's read, Press Reset, his newest one, but also, oh my God, why can I not think of it? I finally got around to reading it last year. Oh my God, this is killing me. Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. I was like, I adored the book. What the fuck? Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. Not only that, but also on podcast stuff that, and, obviously some of the journalistic work that he's done for Kotaku and now Bloomberg, but that these delays are good because they also, on the surface, yes, this buys more time, this adds more polish, yada, yada. But also from a crunch standpoint, it does open the door to more crunch because it's saying, hey, we've been doing it like this for X amount of months. Guess what? Or, we've been working, and I'm being conservative, probably saying 50 to 60 hour weeks. I know it's more than that, but for this, we got to push it just we bought more time. Now let's push it a little bit farther. Let's get to this point. Let's get to gold, till the game goes gold, and then we're good. Then we'll peel back. Yada, yada. It's just extending the crunch. And I would like to think Bethesda, as a studio who has not only BGS, has multiple studios under that banner now, between Redfield or Redfield, Rockville, Maryland, and Austin and Montreal. Like, now that they have these multiple studios under that BGS banner, that they could probably flex it a little bit. And we're talking hundreds of employees now, close, even potentially close to thousands with contractors and whatnot, that you can maybe let this game, I don't want to say you can let this game breathe a little more, but you have a little more flexibility that you can kind of spread some of this work out, and maybe that it isn't. And maybe they're trying to also do this now in, a post-COVID world that we're seeing, hey, we need to recalibrate the idea of work and working from home and flexibility. And we've seen what that can do to people. And, we've seen what it can do to the world whenever you try to do that. And people are also seeing like, hey, the way that we've been doing stuff could potentially has been bullshit. Let's change it a little bit. Let's improve it across the board, both from a logistics standpoint, but also from a personnel standpoint. Like, so, I think, you like to think from a glass half full perspective, maybe this does buy them the ability to, hey, we're going to be able to polish it. This buys us, let's just say 6 months, to launch. Let's say this launches by the end of May. That buys us an extra 6 months. 3 months of that is just straight polish and getting the game great. And the last 3 months, I would say it's probably closer to month is, hey, we're working on day one patches and and debugging and, QA and all this stuff, kind of stuff on that end. But to me, though, this can only be viewed as really a positive thing, because once again, we've seen what goes wrong with a quote-unquote beloved developer who is very well known for doing this one specific thing, open world RPGs that are immersive, that are very much thought-provoking, worlds that people want to live in, experiences people play for decades. Realistically, they do. Like, that we've seen what happens when you rush it out, and we've seen what happens when it ain't ready. Fuck it, we need to just get it out. And we've seen how that message really, really, really falls flat on its face, and that approach just does not work. And two, I brought up Jason Schreier. Let me pull up his Twitter real quick, because he had a comment on this that I thought was interesting to pull up. Here we go. He quote tweeted the Bethesda announcement about I keep wanting to say Redfall, Redfill. It's late. It is later that we're recording this. But the update on Redfall and Starfield. Quote, last spring before E3, I spoke to some folks on Starfield who were extremely worried about committing to an 11/11/2022 date based on the progress they've made so far. And in parentheses, he says, next cyberpunk was the term that was floated around. Good on Bethesda for delaying even after announcing that specific date. He followed up then to quote, well, why'd you wait until now to say this? Because, game dev is non-linear and turbulent, like I kind of brought up as well. Even the people working on a project can only guess how it'll turn out, yada, yada. But, but I think it is good to note that they are cognitive of it. Kind of, and this is, I'm sure, and no longer is this just a ZeniMax, decision that needs to be made. This is a Microsoft decision, as well. This isn't a Bethesda and ZeniMax decision. This is now a Microsoft and Xbox decision. So good on not only Phil and I think it is okay to give, constructive criticism on this and feedback, and it is absolutely okay to be frustrated as well as somebody who, remove, hey, I see the developer side, I see the, media side of things, and I like to try to bring that perspective to this podcast and when we have conversations about stuff regarding game development. But just as a fan, yeah, it fucking sucks, man. Like, I'm excited to play this game. This is my most anticipated game of the year, hands down. Starfield's my most anticipated game of this year. It was probably, I don't want to say my most anticipated game, period, is The Elder Scrolls 6. But two Bethesda Game Studios titles are my most anticipated games, are on lists of most anticipated games. And this year, and that's even over, God forbid, this is an Xbox show, but that's over God of War Ragnarok that's slated to come out this year. And I fucking adore God of War, the new iteration, that is. So that's saying a lot. So I think it's, like I said, good on, like I was getting ready to say, I should say. I give Phil props on this one because it's got to be hard to come out and say, after multiple years of, hey, we're building up, we're getting ready, it's soon, we're going to have all these exclusives, yada, yada. This was the first year, and you could tell it by the marketing last year, you could tell by their E3 presentation, or their E3 showcase last year with Bethesda, that last year, sure, we're going to have, a couple, we're going to have Forza, if I could talk, Horizon 5 come out. It's going to be a hit. Obviously, Halo Infinite, we're going to have a nice 1-2 punch with them that is, hey, for, long-term Xbox fans, this is, what we've been used to seeing, but we're going to hopefully have a nice holiday season this year with these 2 games. But for what we've been building to, this new iteration, this new kind of mindset and future of Xbox, of all these studios under this banner, all these not only homegrown studios, but acquisitions and things start to pay off. 2022 was going to be that year. At least not in the sense of like, and even just, from what Jeff Grubb said as well as, bringing up of like, this was going to be at least the start. This was going to be, we're finally going to see a little bit of progress, like a little bit of the fruits of that labor kind of pay off a little bit. And really kind of 2023 and 2024 are going to be the years that we really kind of start to see stuff roll through. And now, obviously, that is going to be the case. But I give Phil props on that for coming out, addressing it. And I give, once again, I still think the most telling thing about why I'm confident still in the direction Xbox is going and building this ecosystem, but more from a quote unquote exclusive standpoint and, IP standpoint, and bringing all these studios in, having all this content, and why I still believe in that. I still go back to, and even though take where the game is at or whatnot, that is what it is. But the fact that they delayed Halo Infinite from the release of the Series X and Series S, you never see in a launch game delayed. Really, you never do. A tentpole, this is the reason to buy this console. This is the Breath of the Wild for the Switch. This is the game to buy with this. This is the reason to buy this console right now, right at launch. Don't wait, buy this now because you want to play this game. The fact that they gave the thumbs up and said, delay it for a fucking year. That to me says this is mindset of content first, getting this stuff right, putting out a polished product. So, I've seen some of the comments and things like that, and to be honest, they're a little bit better than I thought they would be, but still seeing a lot of pretty negative stuff. And this is just from somebody from my fan perspective of, it sucks seeing that. And it sucks this situation coming out, but hey, you know what? From a fan perspective still, I'm happy for this because I want a great game to come out. And I give Xbox credit for having the gall to say, hey, do what we need to do to push it. And, make it happen. But we want a good game. We want a good game, and we're willing to say, take the time to do that. So, I give them credit on that end. From my, content creation and I don't quote unquote journalistic approach, I kind of say the same thing. Like, it makes sense. This is the right thing to do. We haven't seen any full gameplay of either of these games. I've been talking about Starfield, not to mention even Redfall. Like, this is a game that not only, like Joe said in his article, this was the closer. This was the and one more thing from Xbox's E3 showcase last year. And we didn't see gameplay from that during that time. Okay, cool. We're holding back. It's a summer 2022 game. Obviously, that's not happening. We knew that pretty much at this point going into, beginning of this year. We haven't heard anything about the game. Okay. But hey, this could be a nice fall September game to come out. And still not hearing even a peep of it or, another look at it, yada, yada. Like, that's still getting, like, we knew that was getting delayed at this point. But the fact that we haven't seen gameplay from either of these games, like, that just tells you, like, hey, this isn't in a place where we want to show it. And just from playing Bethesda games for a long time, both BGS and, published games by them, and knowing the mindset that a lot of the higher brass kind of approach with, especially like on the BGS side with Todd Howard and whatnot, him being very vocal of like, hey, if we could, I would fucking give you like a couple days ahead of knowing a game's coming out and it launching. Like, I would pretty much saying I would shadow drop everything if I could, just because like he doesn't like showing, and we pretty much seen that with Fallout 4, especially back in 2015, whenever they showed that game, and they didn't even acknowledge that game existed until E3 of 2015, and boom, what, 5 months later that game came out? Like, so I get it. Like, they want to show the game in the best possible state, and I could respect that, because especially too, like, if you're thinking of an E3 demo or something like that, people don't understand how taxing an E3 demo can be on just the development, the logistical flow of development for a game. Especially, we're talking these large AAA projects, exclusive things like that, that have, hundreds of people working on them, and the scale of these games are, immeasurable at times, it feels like. Creating that slice that you take to E3 is very much a project on its own that can be very taxing and takes away from the development of that game and the manpower putting into that it just, to me, I don't blame. Anytime you hear, oh, we're waiting to show you, it's because they want to make sure it's the best possible version to show you, but also too, that shit derails so much of the actual development at times that it's like, and that's why I'm more or less like, hey, just show it when you're ready, and that's from both fan and, reporting on this. It just makes sense to do it that way. But yeah, Redfall as well, that it's like, to me, you're talking about a game that is from, the follow-up from Arcane Austin. So you're following up Prey, that would be. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's their first game since Arcane Studios Austin. That I'm pretty sure, trying to see if they have, Prey would be there, unless, did they work on Death of the Outsider? I'm just kind of like rambling a little bit. Let me see, development. No, I know they kind of had they do have a shared experience at times, like across the board. But like between their two studios, but I want to say, what about, oh shit, they did Young Blood? Interesting. I don't think I ever realized that. I knew obviously Machine Games was working on it, but no, it was the one in Leon. Okay. What about Cyberpilot? Same deal. Okay. So this is technically their first game since Prey. So, 5 years turnaround, but the fact that you're not seeing that, and especially too, if we're talking about if they're talking about a game being this ambitious as it is, as an open world RPG FPS that is co-op, like, that's coming from a studio that has done pretty much linear projects for the most part. You could talk about Prey being a, how do you want to put it? It's like kind of immersive sim / I mean, it is very much an immersive sim, but has Metroidvania elements to it that, but this is very different. An open world co-op FPS is very different from what they've been doing in a much larger scale. So the intricacies of that game, a 5-year turnaround is pretty quick, if you ask me, in modern AAA, big budget games. So the fact that we didn't hear anything about this game, I could have told you already at the beginning of the year, this game's probably getting delayed. And we're talking like not a peep. So, but yeah, man, like I said, I'm still kind of all processing all this stuff too. And, I say that both, more so on the, we're getting more details as this comes out. But I think it's still pretty fair to say that, we're probably not out of the woods yet. Like, yeah, I think if you ask me now, gun on my head, do I think we're going to see this game, both of these games, come out in the first half of 2023? I say yeah. I think my gut says we will. I still would not put it out of the realm of reality, though, that one of those games miss. And it might be Starfield. I don't know. Who knows? I think we're going to know a lot more about where this game stands post Xbox Bethesda conference in a couple weeks. I think we are, and I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I really do think we're going to have a better idea of where this game stands from a development standpoint. For what I'm hoping is the fact that we truly do see a deep dive on this game. That we see the, and who knows, maybe we don't see it here, but we at least got to see some gameplay from this at this point. We've, there's been, I don't want to say leaks galore, but we've seen a lot of leaks come out of the game, start to trickle their way in, some leaked screenshots and things like that. So we need to see what the game actually plays like. And, there's been rumors that, hey, the flying in the game isn't great. The shootings, good of, I'm sure it's probably similar to Fallout shooting with an FPS, which is fine. That's, totally fine. But that the actual exploration is great and all these other things that what you would want to hope for, but, that the flying's kind of tricky. So maybe that's, we're not going to see fully everything at the showcase, but, I would like to see that deep dive by the end of this year for this game, because then that's where I'll have the confidence. If we get there and we see a quick couple minute, kind of montage of gameplay, which I don't think they would, because that's not usually how Bethesda likes to show off their titles, their BGS titles at least. They usually do like to go into these deep dives, and that they even, kind of said, hey, we're going to show a deep dive when we talk about this game. I do hope I will feel very good if we get a nice 5 to 10 minute deep dive of Starfield come June 12th. But that'll make me feel better about, hey, this game's going to come out between, March and May. I think I'll feel better about that. But anywho, though, yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to really talk about. There were a couple of other things that kind of popped up that I thought were interesting. Like, it was kind of more like 505 Games is announcing a showcase for next week. We'll kind of talk about that next week. But like Alan Wake is getting a TV series, and Alan Wake 2's development's, still on track and whatnot. But that was the big thing I wanted to talk about, obviously, because that's a staple. It's one of those things that's kind of a staple in our show at this point. It's almost like Halo Infinite, where we end up talking about one of them just because it's something so close to the vest for us a little bit. But anywho, that's pretty much all I got for this week for the most part. Yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. It was really, Starfield and Redfall getting delayed, and what that kind of looks like, where we stand now, what's the direction we're kind of going at, and yada yada. So, and obviously we'll have more next week. I want to get Mike's thoughts on this next week whenever he's back on the show, and just kind of maybe flesh it out a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for episode this week. So I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Traveless on most internet platforms, including at Travless_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You could also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travless_, same as Twitter. And you want to play some video games with me on pretty much any platform, but specifically Xbox Live, you could do so at just regular Travless. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So Be sure to subscribe to us, rate and review us wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for our episode this week. So thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.